Ladies and gentlemen, no gender, we only have one gentleman here. I want to welcome you all here again. Luckily, the clouds decided to part and not flood us out, so we are here. Pat is going to tell us how many people we have present tonight and our guests. Yeah. Is Dawn here?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't see your face on the button.
We have 40 members present. One of our guests has just joined. Molly Waddell. And, oh, there she is, yeah. Molly, yeah. Welcome to the club. And our other guest is Cindy Peterson. Where are you, Cindy? Okay, that's right, I remember now. And Kimberly Klein. Where are you, Kimberly? Who plans on joining us.
Okay, welcome everyone.
Sharon.
So we're glad to have you all that are joining us. Judy, Russell, do we have any treasurer's report we need to?
There's nothing, we're tracking on our budget for this year, so there's nothing really to report.
Okay. The only new thing was that when Coral came to arrange for a workshop, there's a new pastor at the church, and I can't remember her name, it's in my phone. And it was like her first day on the job. And she's like, do you guys pay us? And we're like, yes. And she goes, we can't find anything that says you do. So I'm going to meet with them, we'll get that all, so they're happy that it's in writing and they'll know what our arrangements were. So, but they now have a head of the helm here again, which is nice. Okay, we sent the minutes out to you last night, I think it was. Sorry, that was my fault. All of a sudden last night I went, oops. So is anyone, will anyone make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Cindy Saunders.
Thank you. I second Sharon.
Sharon Kalinowski, second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. Old business. I can finally retire some of my old business. We had people volunteer last meeting to work on some of the committees I've been pleading about. Carolyn, is it Galuccio?
Yes.
Okay. I remember that from Claudio, my friend, how to say the two C's.
I might be Italian by marriage. It took me a while too.
I married someone of German descent, and I kept saying, I'm not German, we're like all English and Irish, and then I found that actually Derry was Durenberger, and went, oh boy. I can't get Empire Germanic. So Carolyn had agreed to, Carolyn has agreed to, she's kind of leading, it's my committee, but she's kind of going to be the person knocking the mallet if they all won't be quiet. For the raffle quilt. So they're going to get started. And she will be working with Jean Roth and Kim Weber, Sue Martin, and Cindy Sanders. And they're going to get going on that because we're a little behind the times already. And then also the helper for Sharon with the volunteer recruitment. Kathy, is it Osterkamp and Kelly Edmund have agreed to shadow Sharon this year and learn for the 2026 show, and then in 2027 they will do the recruitment for us for that show, which, oh, thank you so much. That was such a weight off me last month. Publicity has been open if you looked at the list of committees, but Sue Martin goes along public liaison for multiple organizations, and she has the contacts and everything, so Sue has agreed to do our publicity again, which we haven't had for a while since Claire, thank you. Since Claire dislocated her hip and had to have all that surgery and couldn't do it anymore. So thank you so much, Sue. Upcoming programs and workshops? Nanette? I didn't see Coral.
Coral is on a mission trip in Costa Rica.
Oh my. Oh,
Yeah. She's multi-talented. Hi, my name's Nanette, and Coral and I are your program coordinators. I wanted to bring you up to date. Of course, today we're going to have Sharon Kalinowski. Did I pronounce that correctly, Sharon? Okay. Yeah, Sharon's a longtime member. She's going to give you a little bit of her bio, just to get, you probably know a lot of it already, but just to bring us up to date as far as all that she does in the sewing world. And then in June, we have Jean Roth. She's going to be doing Stack and Whack. And I don't see Jean here, but...
She's in Chicago.
Oh, she's in Chicago, okay.
Can't hide from us.
Yeah, she's trying to find the new pope. Anyway, then July we have, we're going to have a Christmas show and tell. We're going to do something a little different. If you could bring your, anything, any of your crafts, anything, dolls, anything that you've created for Christmas that you want to do in a show and tell. And we'll also have an ice cream social as well. So that should be fun. And, oh, and then in August we have Linda. Linda, you want to stand up? So everybody knows you and can ask you questions. Yeah, thanks so much. Linda's going to bring her dolls and tell us all about that. So that'll be a great Monday night as well. Then in September, we have Mike from the Sewing Garret. He is our service person from the Sewing Garret. He's a great guy. He's good looking too. And a single dad, yeah. Besides all that, he is wonderful with machines, but he's going to bring a machine here and actually, probably just gather around him and watch him clean a machine and talk to us about machines. So that should be really, really great. Then the month afterwards, I should have brought the book. Well, someone else from the Sewing Garret will be here, and her name is Michelle. And she's going to do an origami quilting project. But yes, yeah, it should be really interesting. In fact, in the newsletter, I'll send out a copy of the book. There's a book, she's taken the classes probably, I think in Paducah and a couple other places. And if you go to the Sewing Garret, she actually has a sample up on the wall. But it's wonderful. It's really, and then the quilter actually has little Japanese gifts that you can make too as well. So they have quite a repertoire. So she's going to be with us that evening, and then she's going to have a workshop the following Saturday. So we'll have a sign up starting next month, but that should be really, really good. She's actually putting together packages for each of us too, so we don't have to go out and buy everything. So that should help as well. Then we have in November. Thank you, Cindy Sanders. So we have the.
I'm October.
Pardon me?
I'm October.
Oh, well, let me go back.
October 18th is the mystery quilt.
Okay, all right.
So, unless you switch that on me,
I'll be back to you on that one.
we're going to do mystery again.
There's a reason behind that, yeah.
Yeah, and anyway, Michelle's fine with that coming in November. That's not a problem. So here I got you all excited about it now. We're changing the date, but we'll let you know. And in November, Nora and Leslie are going to do the challenge and charity quilts. Thank you, Nora.
No, it has nothing to do with charity quilts.
Oh, that's what it says here. Okay.
It's our annual
Challenge.
theory challenge.
The color theory challenge.
Okay. All right, color theory. Thank you. And then in December, we're going to have our holiday party. Thank you.
Okay, let's take a break and do door prize. Okay, you're in new business anyways.
I know.
Let's see. Pat, we have how many people here? I would. Did everybody sign in?
44, and the 3 is.
So we have 47. Peter, pick a number between 1 and 47.
30.
Denise Stewart.
She's like, what did I do? What did I do? You won the door prize. My mother won an award in the Episcopal Church. The highest award a layman can get is called the Bishop's Cross, and it's for service to the church over your lifetime. And my brother let me know it was coming, and I flew up to New York for that. And she's sitting there, I forget what lie we told her as to why I was there, because she had no clue. And she's sitting there, and the priest goes, "Joni?" And she goes, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "You need to come up here." And she goes, "What did I do?" I think she was like 84 at the time. That was so cute. One other thing, oh God, I just went out of my head again. It'll come back to me. Block of the month. Shall we take care of that?
For those of you who are new, what we do with Block of the Month, each month I will give you a pattern for a new block. And if you choose to, and I hope you all do participate, you go home and make 1, 2, 3, however many you want. When you come back the next month, you put it into the drawing and you get a raffle ticket. And if your ticket is drawn, then you get all of those blocks. So you can go home and make a quilt. So, how many did we get this month? How many are there? 14. 14, and I have 2 more that didn't make it. So Sharon will bring my 2 next month, whoever gets it, then you'll have 16. So you can put together a 4x4 grid. So, you got your tickets out. Ticket ends in 908. Oh, there you go. Okay, Lynn, 1. And Sharon has 2 more blocks for you.
And Sue has one too, so.
Okay, and then you can put one, piece it into your bag. Yeah. So for,
Trim those up nicely.
so for the block of the month this month, we are partnering with Sharon. So you need to pay close attention to her presentation. She's going to go over the block of the month in her presentation, and you're going to learn how to make the block of the month and everything that she's teaching you. Okay? Pay attention.
Okay, does that give you a big hint on what's on that block? Okay, the UFO challenge?
Just sign in with Sue Martin.
Somebody, one of our new members has a UFO sheet back there. For those of you that are visiting and have not been here before, every quarter we turn in a list of UFOs we want to try to get done, and when you finish it, you let this quarter Sue as the chairman know, and at the end of the quarter you get a raffle ticket and there's prizes. We had some ladies go around, Tatiana and Sue, did somebody else go with them? I can't remember. And ask at the quilt show, ask the vendors if they would donate to us. So some really nice prizes that they gave us. They were very, very generous. And whatever that old business was that was in my head is just going right out my ear.
Full members and 2.
Okay, some new business. Well, she's taking care of that real quick. I'm going to do one. I don't know how many of you will remember Diana Bankston. She was a member about, I'm going to say maybe 6 years ago, about the time that Kendra was going to be the second vice president in charge of programs. Diana was going to join her, and then she had to move. And Kendra found out that Diana passed away suddenly this weekend. people who knew her and talked to her, they couldn't reach her, and finally got a hold of her daughter, and the police found her in her recliner. So just keep her family in your prayers.
Who was it?
Diana Bankston. She was fairly new, and she said she would, take on.
She came to one of the retreats.
She might have been at.
Yeah.
She might have been at one.
Was there the nurse the 1 year, they were.
I don't know. But,
And then she moved right after that.
Yeah, she joined and then moved really quickly. It was an unexpected move too, so. Okay, and now, you all know that we do fidget quilts. For those of you that are visiting and have not learned that, a fidget quilt is a small quilt that has things on it to keep hands busy. People with traumatic brain injuries, Alzheimer's, dementia, children, me when I'm nervous, anything like that that can keep your hands busy, calms you down. And that is a project that we make every year at the charity booth at the quilt show. And we make like 60 to 70 of them every year. We hand a whole lot out to people, tell them how to make them so they can go home and teach their adults how to. But we need them all year long. We constantly get calls from nursing homes and the memory care units at the hospitals and things that do we have any. So Sue would like to talk to you about getting together and helping to make a bunch.
Thank you. So a quick little story with fidget quilts. With my other guild that I've been a part of for over 15 years, we've been doing these for years. We even did it in Virginia for as a nurse. We've been doing these for all over, but for Racing Fingers, we're trying to keep this in Volusia County, but I am constantly getting calls. And when we do the quilt show, that's always a big thing, and I've been very blessed that when I joined Racing Fingers, been a part of that booth. But it's grown since then, even with Racing Fingers. But bottom line is there is never not a need. I could give you an entire spreadsheet of the amount of places that need them. I mean, as at this point, for all of the entire ideas, I've sent them to Canada, we've sent them to Maryland, brain centers, you name it, you got it. But for us in Volusia County, there's a lot of need. And it's not just about dementia, brain cancer, Alzheimer's. It's children that are autistic, it's children that are blind, and you name it, it's a sensory thing. And so we have so many donations between just Racing Fingers, the AQS, the American Sign Guild, local thrift stores, people like yourself that have just all of a sudden brought me 14 billion things of lace and stuff. I love it. And I've organized with a lot of groups of people to help us get ready to continue on a regular basis. And I brought, because I have a really big request for youth right now. We need youth, and we give them to schools. We give them to, like I said, cancer centers, you name it. Anyway, I could go on for a half hour, I ain't gonna do it. But like, I brought a sample of an actual, this is an, yes, this, if you could hand it, this is an actual approved fidget quilt, safety, that, because the main thing with the fidget quilt with Alzheimer's, dementia, you name it, it's the fact that the agitation and stuff, everything has to be secured. And that's the main thing. But we've had a big request lately for children's fidget quilts. So I've been working with 4 different organizations locally, and we also send them to the foster care units for kids that need to try to stay together. We have a couple organizations that try to keep the foster kids together, especially because they might have 2 children that are going to be placed, and one of them might be special needs. So there's just a never ever ending need for these fidget quilts, which is always very dear to my heart. And especially as a nurse, I've I've done a lot of work with different companies and stuff, but like I said, I've shown a couple, and I noticed today that this was not a very good strap, but that's okay. It can be, taken off, but this just shows you some of the stuff and the things that are donated, as long as it's safe and they can't take it into their mouth, and people asked about the straps. We stopped doing the loop straps because people were doing loops because they could put it around the neck. No. And some of the places that we work with don't even want straps. Or they want shorter straps because they're going to be on their wheelchair or they're going to be on their bedside. But like I said, so my proposal, and I've been asking, is to try to get a day, because we've tried a few times to do it where it's the open sew, but open sew, or sit and sew, as we call it, is about people doing their own projects. So my thought, and I've been asking, raising fingers, about doing a fidget workshop day. And it would be once a month, and I think that the ladies that are in charge with working with the church have already started that, and it would be once a month. And the only thing that we need is people to sew. There's not a supply that we need between all the guilds and all the donations we just happens to be stored at my house because my husband's a saint. People that know Scott and what I do. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that, and Coral has just jumped on the bandwagon. She's been binding things. We have so many blanks that are ready. Everything's organized, and it's up to you and your mind on what you want to put on. And the main thing is that it's safely attached, and that's it. So, like I said, but we've got a really big request for youth right now. I turned in 35 fidget quilts to Advent Health last month, and but now Halifax is a whole different deal because there's only certain things that they want on theirs. But on the national level, as long as it's safe and they can't rip it off and it's not something that they can choke on or anything else, it's amazing. I mean, the program is huge. So anyway, that was my thought. And if you want to, I have a whole bunch of blanks that are cut and ready to bind. I have all the binding cut. I have not just me, we have straps cut. They're ready to sew. And if you ever want to pick up a pile and you want to get some supplies, just give me a call, email me, text me, whatever you want to do. Thank you.
I think it's a great idea.
I think what we have to do is let the powers to be to tell us what day we can do it.
We need to talk to the church.
Talk to the church, and then, yeah. And like I said, all you need to do is bring a sewing machine. You don't even bring needles, thread, nothing. I got it all. Seriously. She does. Thank you.
So I'm going to call the pastor this week and arrange to meet with her. And I will talk with her about that to see if we can set that up. And if some of the other groups want to come on that day too, like the American Sewing Guild, I think that's fine. Because when we started doing it, we asked people at the quilt show to make the whole thing, put it together, give it a little quilting, put stuff on. And after 2 years, we went, this really doesn't work. So then we got busy making the blanks. And one thing they discovered soon, like the third or fourth year, was that all those quilt machine companies, they sit there and they quilt all that fabric with all that colorful thread so you can see it. They just chuck it. So we take that and cut it up and make blanks out of it because it's a colorful background. So just getting the blanks ready is a help so she has a supply. But then if we can have days when we can just embellish, that we could probably get quite a few taken care of. So I'll work. I mean, is a weekday good for a lot of people or weekends?
Weekday.
Weekday, okay. I will talk with the church about that. No problem.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I don't know. Quilters are wonderful people and they're very giving. Have you ever heard of the Tears Foundation? It's a national organization. It's for parents who lost a baby in utero or right after birth. And a couple of years ago, one hospital here in the 3-county area, or the 1-county area, whatever, lost 15 babies in 1 month. Wow. And I'm sure you ladies can relate to having lost a baby or know somebody who has. But it's a national organization, and most of the time the women went home with nothing. One time a woman went home with an ashtray. And that's pretty sad. So the Tears Foundation, we make baby quilts. They're about 24 inches by 24 inches or thereabouts, and when they're donated, and every parent that leaves the hospital or after the baby has died, they will get this box. Anything in relation to the baby is in the box or little basket. It could be the sonogram, it could be a bracelet, it could be a teddy bear, it could be anything. And the parents go home with a quilt that can remind them of their baby. They can be buried in the quilt, or they can keep it as a memento. And we've been putting labels on it that says somebody cares. But it's a worthy organization. My other deal, we make them every year at Christmas time when we donate them to the 3 hospitals in the county that are involved in the program. But I had never heard of it before. And then I went to my doctor and he found out I was a quilter. He said, we used to have ladies that would do Afghans, they would crochet, but they don't exist anymore. I said, well, we can make quilts. Well, we've been making quilts and for a long time. And every year we give 30 or 40 to the Tears Foundation. And one year I made a raffle quilt for them to raffle off. Then the money went to be given to the parents who have no way of burying a child, So there are other charities out there, that I didn't think many people had ever heard of the Tears Foundation. I know I hadn't. Yeah.
That is a dilemma we face because we hear about so many things, like the one about
20 by 20,
making
24 by 24. And I don't have to be big and then nothing fancy. Anything that they would treasure as a memento, or they could be wrapped the baby in. Yeah, nothing.
Yeah. The organization that makes dresses for little girls. Sue's with a group that does that. I mean, there's just so much need everywhere. And if there's a few people that want to get together and do that, and there's a member that's, has a connection, that's wonderful. We're keeping with some of the people that we've given to for years, the shelters for women and children. And Sandy knows all of them. Ohana, a group like that. The foster group took off. These ladies got together and said, we want to do this as a need, and good Lord, they have gone on. And how many quilts now?
274.
274 quilts in 2 years? 3 years they have made. And some of these are bigger quilts. They were for kids who were aging out, so these are for, bigger quilts. So if there's anybody has an interest, and has 2 of you have an interest, to see if you can get some other people to work with you, and we'll see what we can do. Just, we can't stretch ourselves too thin. Or you'll be like me and never get anything made for yourself anymore. Okay. Whatever I thought that I wanted to talk about is gone out of my brain for good, so we won't talk about it. I don't have a pen. I should have written it down while I was here and thought of it, but I don't have a pen. No, I can't think of it now. Sandy has a bag up here. If during show and tell you have quilts for charity, she has her big blue IKEA bag that you can set the quilts right there for her. And I think we'll start our program now. Oh, wait, let's do one more door prize. Okay, let's see. Can't remember your name, but you're new and you're going to join us way in the back. A number between 1 and 47, not 30.
9.
Who's number 9, Pat?
Sophie Bethany.
It says quilter on it.
One more, please. Okay, Sharon. Ready?
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, so I was asked to do my own introduction and tell you some things about myself. So I've been quilting, probably for 20 years. I have evidence that it's been at least 20 years because I have a bed quilt that I just turned over, and it was from 1999. So I've been quilting for that long. But when I was in Palm Harbor, which was 5 years ago, I moved there in 2006, and from Washington State. So my husband and I packed everything we owned in a U-Haul truck and sold our house and drove from Vancouver, Washington, which is way up there, all the way across the country to Florida. And I'm proud to say that we are still married. We didn't divorce along the way. It took us 10 days. And for those of you that have never driven a U-Haul truck that's loaded to the gills and towed a car behind, initially my husband had plotted it out, just put it into Google, and he said, what do you think of this route? And it took us through Colorado in April, which I happen to know is not a good idea, and because you'd be doing 14ers in the snow if you were even able to get there. So we took the long route. We came down the coast of California and across to Florida. And then a couple of weeks after we got here, we got in a plane, and we went to the British Virgin Islands for a week of sailing with some friends. And then after that, we came and bought a house. And no, we bought the house before we left, and I unpacked. And when I came home, I couldn't remember where anything was. But I started my quilting journey back in Colorado when I moved to Vancouver, Washington. I took it up a little more in earnest. But it wasn't until I retired that I really started to get more productive. When I lived in Palm Harbor, which is on the other coast of Florida, we were there until 2020. I belonged to a variety of quilt guilds. I think I belonged to 5 there. And I did say I was retired, right? So I belonged to 5 different guilds. One of them was an Applique group out of Tampa. It's called Feather Princess. And they were only applique, and they were very fussy about everything. We had a show every 4 years because applique does take a little bit longer, or at least I think it does, than piecing. I can do a piece quilt probably, in a week or so. If it was Mindy, she'd be doing it in a weekend. But typically applique takes a lot more time, more precise. Well, it's precise, but in a different way. So I got a love of applique. I did quite a bit of it, but unfortunately, like I said last year, most of my quilts are gone. I don't have a lot of my quilts here. They're in homes being loved by other people. So my first question is, how many of you have tried applique? How many of you love it? Fewer hands. How many hate it? I see one back there. How many of you think I don't need to try another new technique? Well, the thing that I like about applique, whether you do it in earnest or you just want to do it to enhance a quilt, a lot of times people will do that. They'll make a piece quilt, they'll add something to it just to give it a little pizzazz, a little pop. I have actually used Applique to hide mistakes. It works really well. It really works well. I was doing what do you call it? No, I've gone blank. It was one where you, paper piecing, a paper piece quilt, and the pattern actually had an error in my mind. The roof didn't come together at the right angle. It was off. And so I went to my stash and I said, I bet maybe I can find a pine tree that I can fussy cut and put on top of it and hide it and no one will ever know. Well, I have to tell you, that turned out to be the best thing I did for that quilt. It was kind of boring. But, you know, sometimes the things that you think are mistakes or things that don't quite turn out right, what you do to fix it actually makes the quilt even better. So I challenge you, even if you don't think you like applique, to try it every now and then. So what I'm going to do, this isn't a class on how to applique. That would take forever to teach. But I'm just going to introduce you to the different types of applique. First of all, if you're going to applique, no matter what method you use, you have to learn how to maneuver points, like for the ends of leaves, the V's, like if you were making a heart, that V. You have to learn how to work with curved edges, and there's a difference in the way you work the curved inner edges versus the outer edges. You have to learn about order, and when you buy an applique pattern, some of them will actually have numbers on them that tell you the order in which you place them, so that the things that need to go underneath or on top work out that way, and you're not ripping out and redoing it because you didn't do it properly. Others don't. There's no standard for quilt patterns. No matter what pattern you have, there's no standard way of doing it. So I think, for people who take it from sewing to go to quilting, no matter what it is, it's kind of hard because they're looking for the pattern that, you cut it out and, this is how you put it together. Every designer, every pattern maker has their own way of doing it. And some are good, some are excellent, and some are really awful. And you learn that no matter what you're doing. As far as placement, you have to learn how to place them. Sometimes you'll use an overlay, sometimes you won't. And books vary on whether they give that to you or not. Patterns do. I've had some patterns that just say, look at the front, and look at the picture and place accordingly. Well, that was helpful, wasn't it? So they all vary. So when you get a pattern, you might want to take a look and see how they do it. Also, patterns will vary on whether the pattern is reversed or not. Again, depending on the method you're using, they may choose to reverse it for you because a lot of times you're working, the way you place it, the technique that you use determines whether it's reversed or not. No one method works for all applique. There are thousands of methods out there. Typically, the project will determine the best option, and when I look at something for applique, I'll say, well, they say to do it this way, but I think I could do it that way. And sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the pattern was right, other times I was right. Denise is shaking her head. Typically, larger pieces are easier to work with than smaller pieces. If you're a good hand appliquer, what I was told is you will have straight stitches, and you will have at least 10 stitches per inch. At least. Okay? I think I've gotten to 6 or 7. I don't think I've gotten to 10 yet. Your stitches won't be visible for the front, and it's considered extremely rude to check the stitches. Unless you're in a teaching environment. So when I pass things around today, I don't care. Look at the stitches. You can talk behind my back. I don't really care. But in the end, it's quilted, so nobody's going to see it. So, as long as you're happy with the front, who's going to care? Typically, applique uses cotton on cotton. You will find silk used sometimes. I've got some wool out here that I'll show, and wool is applique because you're sewing it down, and I'll show those to you. Typically, a lot of quilters don't like batik, but I like batik. I like it because it doesn't fray. Other quilters hate it because it's a denser weave, so it's a tighter weave, and they find it's harder to get the needle through. So again, personal preference. With the needles, I prefer a really small needle. My needle is about this big. Now, I'm going to pass a board around that has some examples of what I'm talking about. I'll show you right now. This is my box of needles. It's chock full. And I've gone through every kind of needle to figure out which one I like the best. And so Denise, you probably have a box like this.
Yeah, it's not well sorted anymore.
You know, you just have to experiment. Also, the one I like has a gold eye in it because you're using a fine thread, a really fine thread typically. As you get older, or at least if you're old like me, you need that extra help to find the eye of the needle. And I find the gold really helps to make it visible. With thread, cotton is good, but use a finer weight. Typically when we piece, we use a 50 weight, but I at least would recommend you'd use 60, 80. I prefer silk, it's 100 weight. If you choose to use silk, the only problem is it slides like the dickens, so you're constantly threading your needle unless you put a little knot in it at the eye. And because the thread is so fine, it doesn't even affect it. So I usually do that, and I'm not constantly rethreading my needle. And oh, my box of thread. So this is my box of silk thread. Silk is rather expensive. I haven't bought it in a long time, but when I was buying it, I think they were like maybe $10, $15 a spool. But this is all silk thread. I have every color. If I can't have the color I like, I go to gray or a taupe color. And that usually, you'd be surprised how well it blends in. I'll leave those up here, you can see. Okay, as far as resources, there's a couple of resources that I really like. I like Becky Goldsmith. She is, in my mind, kind of the queen of hand applique, and I've got some of her books up here. I'll pass those out. Ellie Senkowicz, don't try and spell her name. It's like this big. She's the queen of the Baltimore album quilts, and I don't think I have any of her books, but I do have a book up here that I'll pass around. And Edita Sitar, some of you have done some of her pieced work. When I first found out about Edita, she was doing applique, but I think she was doing more raw edge applique, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm going to get the books, I'll pass them on, you can take a look while I talk about them. And I'll start out passing some of them this way. So you say, okay, well, how many different types of applique can there be? Well, I think I've got eight different ways that you can applique, and I'm sure there's a bazillion more out there. But I like applique. I like the hand applique, and the reason I like it is it's quiet. You know, how many times have you gone to a quilt group and everybody brings a sewing machine and you can't visit at all? So when I go to a meeting of applique, especially if it's hand applique, I bring all my stuff in maybe a quart-sized bag. That's all I need to carry. And then I have this board that I use. This was made for me. But I sit kind of cross-legged. Shouldn't have worn a dress like this. And this is how I work. That's all I need. On this board, I've got samples of the different applique types, and I'll pass that around after I've talked. But this is a piece of a mat that got left in my car and got crumpled. I think we all have one of those. And I said, well, I'm not going to throw it away. I'm going to cut something from it. So if I want to write or draw or anything with my applique that requires a hard surface, I just do like this and turn my board over. And I thought about gluing it, but I don't know. I've only had it for, what, 10, 15 years, maybe next year. So the first kind of applique I'm going to talk about is hand applique. And my favorite is the needle turn applique. And basically what you do is you trace the design on your fabric, and then you cut it out, leaving a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Some people don't like even a 1/4 of an inch. So, it's whatever you're comfortable with, but you have to leave the seam allowance. And then you put it on the fabric, you baste it down, and you turn the edge under as you go along. And somebody told me when I first started doing this, you only look as far as where your thumb is when you're turning. You don't look at the whole project. You just, keep going and moving, and you only want to pay attention to what's in front of your thumb and between your sewing hand. The next type is, I'll call it prepped. So what you do is you will prepare your pieces beforehand. Typically you do it the same as you would for needle turn, but you turn under the edges. Now Denise has done a lot of that. Denise Patterson back there. She's a real crazy lady because she made thousands and thousands for her, was it your daughter's wedding? And you were working on that forever. She made favors for everybody for the table. And she had this little box of drawers where she had all these pieces stored. And then when she was done doing all that, she would place them on the block or whatever it was she was doing. But typically that's how somebody who's going to prep the work will work. They will make all those little pieces beforehand, and then they will lay them down and sew them. Now when you do that, you can do it either by machine or you can do it by hand. Okay? I typically prefer to do it by hand, but a lot of people do use machine. Now when they turn them, I don't like glue in my project, but I do know people that have used glue or they'll heavily starch them. Denise, do you use glue?
I have used starch almost exclusively until this year's quilt show when I saw the Applique tools with glue, and now I'm kind of converting to glue. So some of my projects are like pieces I've done with starch, and now some of the other pieces are glue, so I'm kind of a hodgepodge, like you said.
And
no
when
one way that works for everyone.
Yeah, and she just mentioned the Applique. And there's a whole set of tools. You could spend a small fortune on those tools. And so I do not have them. On occasion, if I do use glue, I will use the Elmer's school glue that washes out. I just don't want that in my quilt. But again, personal preference. Okay, another method you can use is to, all right, I'm going to back up just a little bit and show you an example of a hand applique that I did needle turn. And if I can get my 2 helpers, it's a rather big quilt. And I even have a label on it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'll go upstairs. Thank you for demonstrating how not to get on the stage. Okay, so this is a Rose of Sharon quilt that I made. And when I did this, I wanted an old design. There are a lot of books out there that have Rose of Sharon that are done with batiks, and they have all kinds of vases, and it almost looks like a Baltimore album. I wanted a simplified Rose of Sharon. So I went out on the internet and I found an old pattern. I think this pattern is from the 1800s. And the interesting thing was, I wanted to scallop the edges because I wanted it to look old. Until I went to a friend of mine and who happened to be a quilt appraiser, a quilt appraiser, and she said that wasn't around then. She said that was later. So she said if you added the scallop, it would make a later date than what the block was. So I decided not to do that. So, and then I wanted to do something that was very simple, so I had it quilted using a crosshatch.
And she has a very nice label on it too.
I think I might have said it on the label about not scalding it, but I don't know. Okay. And this one I'll pass around. It's a table runner that I made for my mom. And then when she passed away, I got some of them back. But this is an example of, again, needle turn applique. And you can see it washes pretty well. You know, she had it on her table and washed it. The thing, if you are going to do applique, one of the things you can do with applique is you can use very small pieces. So oftentimes all you need is a fat quarter, except for green. If you can find green yardage, that's the only way you can make the long stems. So, and if you haven't figured it out already, if you make stems, I think the best way to make the stems for applique is to use your bias tape tool. It works out really well. Okay, another way you can do it is there's my tool. I decided I wanted to make a black and white quilt, and so I ordered this from Missouri Star. It's for orange peel, and I wanted it black and white. Now the thing I don't like about this is that this is not 1/4 of an inch. This is more like 1/2 an inch. And so it was a bigger seam allowance than I wanted, but I said, well, okay. Well, the thing I like about it is it does have registration marks on it and where your points are supposed to be. So when you mark it, you can see, I've got some examples here. You can see, you know, if you mark that's where you're supposed to, you know, meet up for the point. This works really well. And what you do is you take 2 pieces of fabric and sew them together along the seam line, which is the inner line, and then turn it right side out. It's perfect. I use that for orange peels. I've used it for circles.
What fabric do you use on the back?
You know, I'm a little frugal, so what I did was I took all the little pieces of odds and ends that I had. When I did the black and white quilt, which I'll show you, again, I need my folder uppers. I just chose something the same color, so if I didn't get it exactly, it wasn't going to show. And I used, if I had to buy anything, I just went out and bought the cheapest fabric I could find because all it was going to be was on the back. What I like about doing that is it gives you a little extra dimension to your quilt. And you know, they're all the same. They're all perfect. So I'm going to pass this around, and you'll see examples on here of the different types. I've written on here what they are and what the tracing looks like. You can take the pins off and look. I think most of the time you can just turn it over. And then I pinned on here the needles that I prefer to use. Where did I start last time?
Lauren Culp does it where she uses like an interfacing. Have you ever done that? Like it's really, really lightweight and then
Like the 101?
I've used.
It's not
Yeah, I've used interfacing with some, but again, you know, I like my quilts to be soft, and sometimes that adds, you know, a stiffness that I don't want. So, you know, it's all preference. Just you can get the black interfacing too. So, I'm sorry.
Did you hand applique?
That's all hand applique. I do very little machine applique. This is all hand applique. I did this while watching TV. And remember how I said you can hide your mistakes? Well, I put this together, and when I got it together, some of my blocks weren't perfect, and my centers weren't perfect. And so I just designed a circle that covered everything and put it in the middle, and you know, like I said, and I like it. You know, it looked a little bare before, and I just coordinated with the fabric that was in the border. I'm sorry? Sure. Yeah, some those were probably this board I use when I do wool applique, and when I do the wool I use a thicker thread. So.
Are those blocks, or did you have one big piece and you applique to it?
They're blocks. I started out, what I did was I ordered 5-inch, the charm packs of the black. And so I made my blocks. I cut the polka dot. I cut them to 5 or 5.5. I think I cut them to 5.5. And and then I just put them all together.
Each little orange peel is a single block.
Yeah, that's one block, yeah.
Well, like, if you watch, this is one white block behind it.
Yeah.
There's 4 white blocks behind each black flower.
Yeah, the block is not the 4 orange fields, it's the 1 orange field, yeah.
Did you tell us it took you 3 years to make this?
No, that wasn't too long.
It says 3 years on
Does
the
it say 3 years? I wouldn't lie.
June 2023, it says it took you 3 years to make this.
All right. See, it's a good thing you put labels, you forget what you said. Okay, so that's a different one because you're actually constructing the block using the machine, putting them together. Another type of applique that you can do is especially good for circles, okay? Now, with circles, I did do it this way, where I sewed two pieces together, slid the back, turned it under, and then pressed it. But you can also use a product that's developed by Karen K. Buckley. And here is Karen K. Buckley. I got a little obsessed when I had these. I wanted more than one. So I ordered a couple of different ones. It's called Perfect Circles. This one's the bigger circles, and they come all the way to these little bitty ones that are probably about 1 inch or 1/2 inch. Great for if you have a project that calls for berries. It works really well. And what Karen K. Buckley's method is you take one of these circles, and she explains this. If you buy Karen's project, you take one of these circles and you cut a piece of fabric that's slightly bigger than this, and then you do a running stitch along the edge, and then you pull it to get it tight, and then kind of like a yo-yo. And in her book, in her explanation, she does a really wide. I don't like that. And then you iron the heck out of it. I starch it and iron the heck out of it. But if you look at my circles, you can tell I got a little aggressive with the heat. This is heat resistant, but it's not perfect. So, and these are pricey. So be careful if you do use Karen K. Buckley's, or if you use your own, because it will warp. But it doesn't make any difference when you put your circle down, because it'll kind of get to its natural shape after.
So you pull it around back.
Yeah, so you cut out, I do about 1/4 inch, and then you base it, and then you just pull it and make it tight.
Slide it out.
Yep, and you slide it out afterwards. And I'll send some of those examples around right now. I'll start over here. So what I've got is, I've got one small circle that's still attached to the circle. I've got another one that's been cut out, and so this is what I would place down. And then I've got another one here that I've used using the method like the orange peel, where I've sewn 2 together and then slit the back and turned it. And you can see, I think they all do equally as well.
Is it easier maybe to sew the one that's doubled?
I don't know, because, I can sit there and you're going to have to cut it out anyway. And I can baste really fast, but when you're sewing on a machine on a curved surface, you have to go kind of slow. Or it's I don't like it when I get pointy things on my circles. So, whatever works best for you. And then there's another method for applique, where you use fused, and you'll see on that sheet that on my board that's going around, when you do fused, oftentimes you do need to leave an edge, because you don't want to get your if you're machine stitching over it, you don't want to get glue all over your needle, or even if you're hand stitching. It's a real bear to try and get through it after you've done a few. So you always want to leave a little edge. Yeah. Okay, so that's hand applique. The second type is Hawaiian. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about a traditional Hawaiian quilt. I had the pleasure to belong to a small circle as part of my applique group for a woman whose husband was stationed, and hence the family was stationed in Hawaii for 4 years. And so she took Hawaiian quilting from the Hawaiian native women. And she said, it's more than just making a quilt. When you make a Hawaiian quilt with native people, it's a cultural experience because they talk about the culture, they talk about the tradition, and she said it was just such a wonderful experience. So she tried to pass that along to us as we were going along, as she was teaching us. But if you want to make it in the traditional way, you make it with 2 colors only, and it's cotton, solid cotton. I better put these on if I want to see. They use things in nature for their designs, and there's a Hawaiian book that's going around and you'll see some of that. Basically what they do is they create a template and they place that whole template. It's not pieced, everything is laid on top. It's a whole cloth quilt. And so you can imagine if you're doing something for a full-size bed or a queen-size bed, she said it's very much a group project. You're only working on one quilt at a time with a group of 5 or 6 women. And she said, there's storytelling and all kinds of stuff. So you take this template that's been created. If you look at the book that's going around, they usually make some kind of folded pattern. You say, well, how can that end up being like a 60-inch quilt? Well, they fold it, I think it's like 6 or 8 times. And then when you open it up, it's kind of like the snowflake. Remember making the snowflake? And then they open it up. And that's what they use for the patterns for the top of the quilt. And then they take that in one piece and they place it on top of the background fabric. And then they baste it in place. I've made a small one. I made a pillow for my daughter because we were going to Hawaii. And I can't imagine doing a full-size quilt by myself. That would be an adventure. They do hand turn it using needle turn. And then the quilting, the actual quilting part of it, the sandwich, they do by hand and they echo the pattern of the quilt. And then they repeat that, I think it's probably a 1/2 inch, maybe an inch. Do you know, Mindy, what it is? I know it's pretty close. I want to say it's like 1/2 inch around. They typically give a pattern called breadfruit. It's called ulu, U-L-U, and it's traditionally given for a wedding gift, a new home or something, but it's to signify abundance and fruitfulness. So the thought is if you give it to a bride, they'll never have a need they'll never go hungry. They'll multiply and have children, all those kinds of nice things. And as I said, my daughter was moving into a home, and so I made her the ulu as a pillow. Now you can do machine, and I think that's become really popular with Hawaiian quilts, but that's not the traditional way of doing it. And you would do it the same way. You probably would turn the edge under, or you could do it fused as well, and then stitch the raw edge. But traditionally, you would go through, and it would be a community project, which I thought was really sweet. So if anyone would want to get together with me for about 5 years and make a traditional Hawaiian quilt, I'm taking names after the class. Okay, machine applique. The machine applique is just like the hand applique, but it's typically prepped and you sew it down using a machine. Most often it's done with a straight stitch, or you can go close to the edge, use a satin stitch, or you can try out the fancy stitches on your your, $5,000 to $10,000 machine. And I'll show you an interesting one I did. I'm going to pass this around. So my husband and I went on a trip to the British Virgin Islands, and I was asked to do a presentation to my quilt group on printing on fabric, which I've done a couple of times. And I wanted something that would be fun to look at. So I took all our pictures and I printed them out, and then I started just putting them on what would become a table runner. I'll pass this around. And I just used my fancy stitches. So this is a real cheater's quilt in my mind. It's just fused down. I put my stitches on it. Now, if you do use machine stitching, I highly recommend that you use an interfacing, some kind of stiffener behind it. So none of this, not one stitch is hand done. So unlike me. One thing is unusual for me is I usually like everything orderly and neat. And this is not. And I did this intentionally because I thought if I started having to make everything line up, I would go absolutely crazy. So I intentionally made everything a little askew, and I think it looks just fine. So I'm going to pass it around. And on that one, my husband is the one. My husband's 6'3", and he was doing something in the sink, probably making a drink. And I think there's a picture of him with his head up over the window. His head through the window because he was too tall to stand in the boat. You can do raw edge applique, which is usually fused down and then sewn down by machine where the edges are visible, which is that. Mindy was kind enough to give me an example where she showed doing very different techniques on different blocks, and I'll show you that. So you can see she's got some raw edge here, she's got some turned under, and then she's got some fancy stitches here. So I'll pass that around and you can just see the different effects. Where did I pass there? We'll talk about that. Okay. Then there's another one called reverse applique. And reverse applique is where you cut back the top fabric and expose the bottom fabric. I'll pass this around. This is done by, this is a pattern that's done by a company called Eye of the Beholder, which I ordered from.
So many conversations going on. I don't want to be rude.
Okay, can we? Okay. So what I'm going to show you next is reverse applique, and that's where you cut back the top layer and expose the bottom layer, and that's the design. So Eye of the Beholder is out of Colorado, and this is an example. And if you look at this, I'll pass this around. You can see how the design is cut back or cut out of the fabric. And then if any of you have taken a trip to Central America, you may have seen a mola. Yeah. So I have an example of a mola. Actually, I have two examples of a mola. And they typically use 3 or 4 colors, so there's 3 or 4 layers here. And they won't, it's not, I don't know if they actually use it as a bedquilt. I just bought these because, yeah, I've never seen it as a, anything bigger than like a wall hanging. But I'm going to read you what a mola is. And basically, a mola is a unique form of reverse applique, particularly known for its intricate and colorful designs made by the Cuna people of Panama. It's often compared to quilting, but the people consider it somewhat different because it has a cultural significance. So it's not considered a reverse applique, although the technique they use is reverse applique. And I'm going to pass those around to you. And I bartered for this, and I felt so bad afterwards because I know how much work was in it. And I said, oh, I just should have given her, whatever she asked in the first place. But I did it anyway. Okay. Another technique is called broderie purse. Have any of you heard of that? embroidery purse. No? Yeah, I'm not surprised that Pat would know about it. The translation means Persian embroidery in French, and it's a style of applique where they cut out motifs, normally from chintz, and then they just kind of raw edge applique it onto a background. I did not do this, but I received it. My daughter rescued it from the trash can, bless her heart. But this is an example of embroidery purse. What they did was just take flowers and stuff and, applique it on top and make their own design out of it. Yeah. And then they just quilt the heck out of it.
Somebody was throwing that away?
Yeah, my daughter worked at a facility that was closing shop, and she called me up that night. She said, "Mom, you're going to be so proud of me." I said, "Why, what'd you do, hon?" I thought she saved somebody's life or something the way she was talking. And she said there were a bunch of quilts that this quilt group had made, and they were on loan to the facility, and they said, if you ever close or whatever, you don't want them, just call us and we'll come pick them up. Well, she called them and they said, "No, just get rid of them." And so the person that talked to them thought that meant throw them in the trash. And she went out and she rescued, I think there were 5 of them. She sent me 2 and she kept the rest. And I said, bless your heart.
Sharon? Can I ask you a question? It's a burning question. I can't stand it anymore.
Say again?
So I have this burning question because I keep seeing something that's coming around and I'm afraid I might forget. So there's 3 circles right here. Not that the other ones were circles, but this one has a backing and it has a slit in the back of it?
That was the one I sewed together, and then in order to turn it, you slit the back and turn it and turn it.
Okay, so I get that.
And
Does everything have is everything two-sided that you applique?
No. And actually, some people, once they place the applique, will actually cut the back out because they feel a quilt top should only have 1 layer. I'm not of that mindset. I like the depth that the double gives to you. So it's entirely up to you how you want to do that.
And this one has the
That one still has the circle in it.
Repeat it out.
I would take that out, but I just sent that around so that you could see how it was done with the circle.
I'll say I did it out.
I'm sorry?
You can get it out.
You can just, it'll just roll back. You gently roll it back and pull it out. It will come, the plastic's bendy. Kind of like you do with your English paper piecing, with the cardboard. It'll move. Believe me, it does. I did all of those. Okay. The next one, it's not really an applique, but it's something people do with applique a lot, and it's trapunto. Has anyone ever done trapunto? Okay. So trapunto is just a method of stuffing it, but oftentimes it's the applique that's stuffed. And the thing, I've not done trapunto except in a class, and I decided it wasn't for me because every time I needed to thread that needle, I wanted to lick it, and I'd melt the thread. And you have to keep the thread in an airtight container too, or it will dissolve. So I just decided it wasn't worth the, I wasn't going to invest in that. Okay, so we are going to do back basting. So those of you that want to participate, if you would take your supplies out, and I'm going to explain how we need to do that. And in the meantime, I am going to show you one more piece. Okay. This was a gift I received from a friend. It's applique. This is raw edge applique mostly. I won't pass it around. But this was a wonderful gift, original design. But it's a combination of machine applique, turned under, and raw edge applique. Yeah, and oftentimes with applique you will add embroidery to it, like for your stems or whatever. And this again was a gift from a friend, and this was, is it right side up? Is it upside down? And it's raw edge applique. Now, one thing I want to point out to people about applique that you have to be careful with is when you layer, sometimes you will get a shadowing, which can be problematic. I don't know if this had it or if it was another piece that I had. Can you see it on there? Yeah. And so what you have to do sometimes is sometimes you can put another layer of the fabric in between. But, just be aware of that when you do applique. You would have this not so much when you piece, because, your piece is, the only place you'd have it is in your seam. Sometimes you might see the seams. But on applique, it could draw your attention away from the main thing because you will see the shadow and it will distract you. So just be careful about that. Okay, is everyone ready? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your 2 pieces of fabric, and I have 2 pieces of fabric here. And on the back side of your background fabric, I saw it somewhere. The back side, the wrong side, you're going to trace a design. So just draw a design of your choosing. You can draw a circle, you can draw a heart. Again, this is for demo purposes only, so don't spend a lot of time, but just draw a design on the back of your background fabric. Yeah. And I use a number 2 pencil. Do not use an erasable, a disappearing one, because if you iron your fabric, it's going to disappear. Don't use a ballpoint pen because that's not color fast. And I've had cases where it leaks through. So when you mark your pattern, I prefer a ballpoint pen that I told you just not to use. A number 2 pencil is my go-to tool. Oh, well, good. I'm sorry? The back of your background fabric. Yes, this is my background fabric. Again, this is back facing, so it's doing it on the back of our background fabric. It's best, but yeah, if you want to find the center, what I typically do is I hand press my fabric. I hand press it after I quarter it. You can actually iron it if you have an iron handy, and that helps me find the center. And then I'll do the same with my process. So has everybody done that? Have you made some kind of...
Your white fabric. The white fabric
That goes up this way.
It's back facing.
You said that.
On the back. Okay, and while you're doing that, I'm just going to tell you that the block of the month is going to be an applique project, and I'll show you that in a couple minutes. But I will commit to come on Tuesday to the sit and sew next week. I'll be there all day for as long as the sit and sew is. Anybody who has questions about applique and would like to come and learn, if you got a project that's driving you nuts and you need a push, I can push you. Or if you want to have help with the block of the month, what I'll do is I'll bring some extra supplies. So if you don't have what you want at home, I'll bring some extra background fabric. We're going to use white on white, so I'll bring a bunch of 10-inch squares and some extra fabric. So I can help you with that. Okay, are we ready to move on? All right, so everybody's taken their background fabric, whatever color that is, mine is white. On the reverse side, on the back side, you have made some kind of design. Okay? Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your focus fabric, whatever that is, and on the front side of your background fabric, you're going to place your focus right side up. So if you look at the front of your block, both of them have the right sides up. So mine would look like this. I probably should have used something more distinctive. But anyway, this is the front of my background. This is the front of my feature fabric. Okay? And I pin it down or baste it down, whatever is your preference. I pin this down. Okay. So that is step 2, or step 3. Yeah, for purposes of this, if you have pins, it's probably quicker just to pin it down. And when I say baste it down, I would just, like make a big X. All you're doing is holding it in place so it doesn't move on you.
So that was a waste of money.
And I usually use pins. I pin the heck out of everything. I'm going to come around and show you what mine looks like.
They were buying like give me your scissors.
You can't see the design. You better be here. now your design is somehow affixed to your background. I mean, your focus background. What you're going to do now is you're going to turn it over, and you're going to see where the design is on the back. And you're going to take a heavier thread, which will be something like a 40 weight, or 20 weight, or whatever, because the lower the number, the heavier. And you're going to stitch along your design line that you created on the back. Hence, it's back basting. Okay? Say again? It's a basting stitch, so don't get crazy. You know, just like you would do like a gathering stitch almost. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to pass around a couple of examples of a quilt I started, like, I think it was the year after COVID, so it would have been 2020, maybe 2021. The group is going to do a project where some of the blocks were pieced and some of the blocks were applique. And I got to about block 6 and we stopped meeting. And I lost my enthusiasm. So today I brought some of the blocks that I had made. My plan for this quilt 4 years ago, 5 years ago, was all my pieced blocks are going to be solid and my applique blocks are going to be cake. And so these are my applique blocks. And I'll pass them around so you can kind of see, and you can judge for yourself if I'm a good appliquer or not. You can look at the back, you can count my stitches, see how straight they are.
Yes, so were those done like English paper piecing, especially the like English paper piecing when you fold it?
This one was English paper piecing, I think, yeah. Oh, it's going to be beautiful in like 4 years. You know, that one I think I did with the orange peel or something around that. If I had it to do over again, I think I might do it back basting because I can get the overlay better. Yeah. Anyone have any questions? No, you're just you're gonna base on the back exactly where your design is. Okay. Yeah, and when you're another tip when you're doing applique, is I always cut my blocks a hair bigger, maybe a half an inch, even an inch, because you're going to be handling it a lot and it's going to stretch. So, you know, take that into consideration when you cut your block size for your applique. Lisa?
The girl says, so what I got. Yeah, so they're not going to do this more.
Yeah, because you don't want to put too much starch in it, you want to just get the edge. And so it looks like a pen. Yeah. As I said, you can spend, you know, billions and billions of dollars on all the tools, you just have to figure out what's right for you. How are we doing? You need more time or should I move on? Of course it's this table.
And she goes, you are. Except
And this isn't going to. So she said that's. Because I'm like, well, as you're doing it, don't you have to cut all this out?
Any other questions? Are we ready to move on? Okay, table number 1 over here. I'm sorry, say that. So, when you're done basting the back, you need to turn it over to the right side. So you have both fabrics right side up. And you can see your stitching around the edge where you're designing. And now you're going to trim to about 1/4 of an inch or whatever it is you are comfortable needle trimming. Some of my friends would only do 1/8 of an inch. I thought that was insane. Others like 1/2 an inch. So my preference is 1/4 inch. And I'm going to come around and I'll show you what mine looks like.
And when you not the back.
I'll come back to you guys. That's cool. When you're finished,
Right. So it's like here you got your circle, and then she said, so I guess it is basted all the way around. So she said, see, this is what it is. And then she said, you kind of put it through around. So I guess that's how it does it now. Whereas if you're trying to make something that you can cut, I know that this is on the ground, just get kind of cutty. Whereas if you're doing it back here, it's pretty solid. Then you come around. You see? What you get used to. But if you just try it like that, so you go on top just to... Yes, I mean... Okay, so this is... Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, like, what? Okay, so with this, I didn't get that. Okay, so we're like, what's the point?
Just the what?
It's about that big, because you basically back. Normally what you do is make it on and put it down.
And then we were turned around. Whereas this one, this gives you an exact line to go around versus it being kind of.
I like it, to me it's simple.
Because we were all trying to figure it out. How would you fold this around to make it work? Figure it out. So do you do that like, when you bind the binding it, is that the kind of stitching you And I don't know if she didn't do
Is that yours? You did that? And you are ahead of the curve. I wish I had a sticker for your forehead. I just thought
and you sew it like you do binding sewing. You just grab it. So me, it's not, it's just the exact vision. You know, I mean, it's like seeing the itty little. I want to type it. I know I did it. So wouldn't this look stunning if you had like many blocks like this, and then just checkerboard with the fabric that would be like the designer in because it would make this. So I don't. You know what? I wonder if this means
you got it. I think it's easier.
Before everyone leaves, and while Sharon is showing her thing, I have one other thing that I forgot. If you were not here at the November meeting, then you did not get one of these little samples of Terrio Magic. So anyone who did not get one, I still have about 20. Shake them because the stuff settles in there. And tear off my card and throw it away because as of right now, I'm retired. I'm no longer quilting. So I'm keeping my machine. I'll quilt strictly for myself, but If you did not get one, take one, and after everyone has one, then I'll let people take two if they want them, but I want to make sure everyone gets one. So Denise asked, what is Terrio Magic? Terrio Magic is a starch. I would call it starchier than Mary Ellen's Best Press. And I mix it 50-50. So, and it's still plenty starchy. And a lot of times in my block of the month, I will say starch your blocks because maybe it's a bias edge, you need that starch to hold it, keep it from stretching, and keep your seams nice and flat.
So in the interest of time, I'm going to move on. Can I have your attention, please?
Girl Scouts? Yeah, non-Girl Scouts too, thank you.
Okay, so everyone should have their design cut out a 1/4 inch from where they spaced it from the back. Yes. Now what you're going to do to finish this is you are going to go to the front and you're going to start pulling out about 1 inch of your basting. And you're going to turn that under and stitch it down. Hence, it's needle turn, okay? And when you needle turn, you use your needle to turn the fabric under. That's where they get the name needle turn, okay? And you only take out a small amount. Don't take out, 2 or 3 inches. As I said, you work from where your thumb is to, where you've got your needle. So it's maybe 1 inch at a time you're taking out. And if you didn't do that, your circle might get warped, or your design would get warped, okay? All right, so I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to show you the block of the month, okay? Everyone paying attention? Okay. The block of the month is an applique block. And what Mindy and I decided is that a circle, because I made a quilt using gray background and Cape Facet for all circles. And it was absolutely stunning, okay? And there's no preferred placement. You just make 1, 2, 3, however many circles you want. And I've showed you 3 ways to make them. One of them is to use the Karen K. Buckley. The other is to use where you sew it together and turn it, slit the back and turn it. And the other is back basting. Okay, so you've got 3 ways you can do it. So I'm going to show you. So you can make the circle any size you want. You can put as many circles as you want. We're going to use a 10-inch square. And what I want you to do when you place your circle, leave about 1 inch all around. And I actually took a Frixion pen and marked 1 inch all around the block, so that will allow whoever wins it to trim it and then still have a half an inch to a quarter of an inch to a half of an inch to sew the blocks together. So I made one with 2 circles. Again, helter-skelter. It just looks really great. You don't have to worry about placing it exactly anywhere, placing it in the center. However many you want, you can make 1 big circle, you can make 2. Mindy made 3. And both of us use CAPE or something like CAPE, or Free Spirit.
Does it have to be hand applique or any?
You can do however you want. I've shown you 3 methods. The one I didn't show you was raw edge or machine applique. You can do it machine, you can do it hand, you can do it however. Just circles on a white on white background. And I have a picture of the quilt. I would have brought the quilt with me, but many of you know from my talk last time, my daughter has, I think she said, something like 25 quilts, and this is one of them. It's not here, it's elsewhere.
That's cool.
And what I did on that quilt was I used my scraps for the binding. So I wouldn't use, I wouldn't use anything like a 16, like a 6-inch. But if you've got like 12 inches, 18 inches of fabric, you can make a scrappy binding, and it really looks great. The block of the month pattern is here. Pat will put it on the web. But this is the picture that Mindy had. And depending on how many blocks we win. That one was a lesson in insanity a little bit, because again, I think I used 5 or 8, I think I used 8-inch blocks. But it worked out really nice, and she just loves it. My mother wanted it, and my mother's more of a traditional person, but I have promised it to my daughter, so. But anyway, any questions on the block of the month? I think it will be really fun. I'm sorry Joe isn't here, because he likes these bright colors. I think he's going to like this. He'll probably make 106, who knows?
So you start with your next Okay, and that's going to go on 9.
I just make a regular one. One isn't enough. No, it's not. It's just a regular knot. Yeah, and I do it twice. When it's coming up, really, then it'll come apart. It is. Oh, okay.
Just like the nylon.
Any questions about what we're doing, our block of the month next month? It's in the instructions, but we're using a 10-inch, and like I said, whoever wins can figure out how to square it up, but leave an inch at least all around, okay? 10 inches, and we'll trim it to like 9 or 9.5. Depends on the variety of block. Okay, I don't have anything else. Linda, you want to take over?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, everybody wants to sit and sew, but we're going to do one last door prize, and then we're going to do show and tell. So, Sue, a number between 1 and 47, not 30 and not 9. Who's number 3, Pat? She put it away.
You're number 3.
I'm number 3.
On your road. There you go.
I just think it's weird. Well, I'd like to see it.
Okay, as everybody, if you have show and tell, line up over on this side. If we can have a couple people that might help hold things up. Patty, thank you. You knew my brain was not pulling that name out. Patty has left the sign-up list for refreshments over here on the table. There's still some open over the summer. If you would like to sign up. Okay. Okay. Are we ready?
Okay. I finished my mystery quilt from last year.
We can just lay it like on this chair.
The next one is the Jelly Roll quilt that I made for last year's Jelly Roll Day. And last but not least, this is just one I made because I like the colors.
Hi, I'm Julie. I finished this for my UFOs. It was just one of the panel bags. And this was a panel of the little animals. And I didn't have any babies to make it for until my neighbor moved in, brand new neighbor, who has a little baby. And if anybody needs quilting done, because Mindy's retiring, I am picking up some of her quilting for her.
This is in honor of Mindy, that she's retiring. I may never quilt these, so I thought I would bring the flimsies. This was some kind of block of the month from somebody, and then it didn't, no, it goes, that's, oh, one more. So it only made that many blocks, and so I've been to the Modern Quilt Guild, and I thought I would try my hand at it. So, and I even got the threads, and so, yeah, I gotta do that.
This is the UFOs. Is somebody keeping track of the UFOs?
No, I'll have to do it. And so I was quilting all those times I was here as the president. So this is my Halloween. I love a turn dash block. So all the little witches. Oh. I'll pull it. This was a square. I did that probably, maybe 6-7 years ago. And really, I could just do the things in the circles. I'd be fine. So, I just need help. I need encouragement because I got the machine and everything.
Color theory.
Right. Oh, that was just a little. This is called the half square triangle. You could do like 5 million things with this if you just do a bunch of half square triangles. So look at it, it's off center. I never do anything off center. My friend Michelle helped me.
I love that. What a great Next month you bring
This is I made this the child's turning 9 in September. So I didn't give it to her, somebody could give her something else.
This is a big one.
This was something I signed up for. And so you made like the block, you made it like in a 10-inch and then a big giant one.
Is it a motor block kit?
No, it was something else. But anyway, so this is the small one, and then this is the big one.
Oh, was a certain tool?
No, it was just one was big, one was little. And this is the one I just did. So this was Sherry McConnell, row by row, and so I did it with Tilda. And I wish I would have let Minnie quote this, but I did the hexagon. Oh, so that's what was holding me up. I did the hexagons, and then I got really into gluing them, and I was in the car, and I put way too much glue, and then I couldn't get them out, and so then I had to research how to get them out, and so there were ones that I'd already pinned to the fabric, and I thought, why would I pin this to the fabric if I haven't gotten the paper out, only to find out I did get the paper out of those, but I forgot that I knew how to get the paper. Welcome to my brain. So, oh, and those are my socks. I bring socks everywhere. I have cold feet, okay? Vera Bradley for $25, because if I would have made it, it would have been $150.
Good luck.
Are you going to give all those to Minnie to quilt for you? Oh no, I got to do it myself because I have a machine. Yeah. Would you give her a machine? This one. So in January, Margaret Lobianco came, and Mindy and I were sitting there together preparing our flamingos in the background. She goes, oh, here's a yard, you can use this yard. So I prepared one flamingo, and then I went home and said, no, I want 3. But Mindy had the background. So I'm at Mindy's house, do you have this background? What is it? No, I don't have any more. And so she found this piece, so I pieced it. You can't even tell, it's on the right. And I got the 3, but they're kind of hugging each other a little more than the pattern. And the pattern called for 9, and I think I have 11 Dresden plates. There's 5 chameleons hiding in there. And it just got so frustrating trying to sew around each of the Dresdens that I let it sit in my sewing room for a month and I didn't do any quilting. Maybe a little hand stuff, but so I got motivated last Saturday, worked on it, set up tables in the foyer so it could move, and that was the frustration part. Didn't have enough room in my sewing room. So I have to still do some free motion in the wings and a few things, but it's not coming back here, so I had to show it.
This is just a little embroidered sewing machine cover.
Was that one of those like designs by Juju kind of
Sweet pea.
Sweet pea.
And this is that's permanent.
Oh, here, I see. This way.
I keep trying to give you something. This is a block of the month that I get. And I had to let it sit and marinate a while because I had a broken machine and then I got a new machine and it took a long time. Ginger beer. Don't forget your bag.
I'm Leslie Scheimer, and this is an older quilt, but I don't hand sew because no one taught me, and my fingers just really don't know what to do. So when I lived in New York State, I had a friend of mine that did all my bindings, and I just picked it up from her when I was there in January. So she did, yes, I didn't hand bind it, no. So I've done a few machine bindings, but this was a friend of mine who did that, so it's an older quilt, but just done.
My name's Kathleen. This is a small tabletop. It's called Stratastar. Passed it on already. Oh, no.
Very pretty. Very cool.
Thank you.
Was that part of the
Okay, I bring my stuff so no one else is embarrassed that they aren't as good as everyone else. Hey, that brings up simple stuff. So I always want to make a quilt for all the different holidays and put them up, and I try to make a big quilt, and then I don't have room, and why am I doing that? I have to make a big quilt. So I had this really cute Easter fabric, and it was like 2 days before Easter, and I got everybody coming over, and I thought, I found a panel. So, in 2 days, so I have a new embroidery machine that I'm very excited about. So I use the embroidery to do this, and then I use my long arm to do like the beard and all around it. And then I really am not good at doing on the long arm straight things, so then I brought it back in some other ones like around the flowers, and here I used on my domestic machine. So I got a lot of practice, and this was done in like 2 days, and it was finished. Yeah, and I put it on, we have this like gate between our living room and family room because we have dogs and stuff that always come and it keeps them in that area. And it fit perfect. And you can see both sides from the gate. But I want you to see this. Okay, this is what I love to do on small quilts. And that way you know the name of it, when you did it, and as long as it's less than a a yardstick, it fits really great. And so there you go. That's it. There you go. Thank you so much.
So I'm Sharon. I'm back again. I haven't changed my name since I left. This is a quilt that was made by a group for Quilts of Valor. Cindy Sanders and I belong to Volusia County Quilts of Valor. And this was a block of the month that we did. Do you remember? It's Mindy. Yeah. Mindy got that? This was a block of the month. I think we did this maybe January or December of last year. Yeah.
Oh, this is the one that Joe wanted to do.
Yes, Joe wanted to do. Yeah. And I had this gray fabric and thought, well, I'm going to try gray with it. And I think it really still looks very patriotic, but I like the change with the gray. So.
Is it a quilt that's flipping so like the stashing looks so pretty?
Yeah, and it was grouping, surprisingly, for the number of pieces in the block. We didn't get, I think there were 36 that we had turned in, and 6 of them didn't make the cut. They didn't quite make it, but the rest of them were within a tolerance that we could make it all work. So, yeah, unusual. Thank you.
I'm Sophie Bassett, and I made pillows for the cancer people. Some of them are reversible. This one is, some of them are flowers, and I like this one. This one has flannel on one side. So I have a whole bunch of them. But then I have
emailed me and asked me did I have the patent for that. Somebody emailed me and asked me did I have the patent.
I got the pattern that I was supposed to bring tonight. I did not. And I know Cindy Sanders wanted it, and who else wanted it?
That's what I'm trying to remember.
It was somebody else that cost herself. Was it Sharon?
Pat, if you want, give them each one.
The heart. They have a specific pattern that they want. It's more like a.
I just wanted
Is that for the heart?
to know who was.
Yeah. It's the one one that they have found that works for them. It's not a heart, and then you don't have to stuff them. So I would make copies of that, and it's not something that can fit on an 8x10 paper. So if you want to just email me, and I'll put one in the mail or something. So there's the card that was with. That one is not the one that they request, but I mean, I'm sure they'll still use it. They have just found they've adapted a pattern that works for them better.
It's kind of like a crescent.
Yeah, it's like a crescent with the long.
Oh, yeah, send it out by email.
Chance. Yeah. Give it to me. I will get it split. Okay.
This quilt was from a coloring book that was made by a lady named Lillian Thiessen, and I found out that she lived in California, and with the cell phone, I looked her up, and I got her address and wrote her a letter, and I told her about it, making one, and as I made it, there was embroidery and blocks and cutouts at the applique. But it was fun to do. It was like dressing paper dolls. And from each country, it was all the different countries of Europe, but they didn't have one for the United States, of course, but I wanted one for us. So I made America. Cool. And I gave each one a name. So America is my sister Annie. And I got left out, so I took Italy. But
I
the
love how
other
you
ones,
put design
I knew
time.
ladies from each of the other countries, through meeting them during my couple of years that I've been here. So it was fun.
That's fantastic, Sophie.
I went to, I don't remember the quilt store, it was up on, in Flagler on Route 100.
Yeah.
Well, I went there and I bought fabric, and it was fabric of the 30s, because that's when the book was. And this was
With the sewing quilt.
This was the adapted, it was for 1984, and I made it in 2000.
Good for you.
And it was just with 12 scraps.
Beautiful.
But she wrote me a nice letter back. I have it.
I'm standing between you and going home. I've been on a bag making kick because they like potato chips and you can't. And one thing I always wanted to do is make a bucket hat. And I'm like, oh, this is so hard, I'm gonna do this. Well, this one's a little too small. But I love it, now I can make it again. Okay. I have a cherry quilt that Sue Mitchell made, and she just wanted me to turn it in. She couldn't get here tonight. So that's one. And the other one, Sophie's going to do the binding on it. I've done the quilting on it. And it's cute because it's got little bears on it.
The blue bag.
Oh my goodness.
Normally I sit and don't get up because I'm up and down tonight. All right, thank you everybody for being here tonight. Drive careful going home. I don't think it rained anymore. And we will see some of you Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Otherwise, we'll see you next month.